Hello, everybody. Welcome to a special live update show of the Timmy Did What podcast. I'm Kara Burrell, joined by
Ryan Fisher.
Ryan. Why have you brought me here today in my home studio where we shabbily put together something
Our super secret bunker location.
And our super secret bunker location. Yeah. What is going on and why have you brought me here?
Well, in this Timmy Did What saga, this is a very important week. We have some huge developments going down this week that we need to get you updated on and prepped for what's happening the last half of this week regarding the Kelly Suarez trial in Cartagena, Colombia.
So for people who are not familiar with the Kelly Suarez trial, what is that about? What's on the line?
So should we go into a little bit of the story that brought her to this point? It's Kelly Suarez is a woman in Colombia, Cartagena, that responded to a Facebook ad for one of OUR raids back in 2014. She brought herself to this sex party, hoping to make some money in the process. A girl living with her single mom that was in a desperate situation, like most of the people that respond to the OUR raids are. And she got wrapped up into this. To make a long story short, she was accused of being the human trafficker that brought the kids there. She subsequently being identified as the human trafficker in this OUR Tim Ballard raid, was arrested and spent 18 months in one of the most notoriously awful women's prisons in the world, like absolutely horrendous conditions. She was released without charges due to habeas corpus, which you're entitled to a speedy trial. And she was released after a year and a half in jail, trying to put that behind her, trying to move on with her life from that horrible experience. Again, no charges were filed against Kelly as an actual human trafficker. She was the fall guy in that raid. Now, this is important to understand that this raid was filmed. It's one of the big founder stories, or one of the big raids, one of the film shoots that they got a lot of footage from for the fundraising videos and for building the persona and the narrative around Tim and OUR. That footage was also the inspiration behind the Sound of Freedom movie and a character in that movie called Kelly, who was identified as a human trafficker. Well, Kelly was trying to move on with her life, and she ended up taking out loans for women to be put through law school, put herself through school, was starting a new life. 8 years after that raid happened, she was all of a sudden in, I think, 2021, charged with being a human trafficker. 8 years later, these charges came right after, the week after, Tim and OUR held a conference in Cartagena for prosecutors. And what appears to be the story, this is still pending verification, but one of the stories that's out there is that the Sound of Freedom movie was made or being made, and Kelly was the villain in the story, one of the main villains in this Sound of Freedom movie. She was not charged and convicted as a human trafficker after that raid, and that's a problem for the narrative of the movie.
Because if Tim is basing the Sound of Freedom movie, that was one of the biggest, movies of 2023 that launched him into extra superstardom, if the founding story of that has a villain in its narrative, but that actual villain is not a real life villain, and that person's life has also been hanging in the balance, in and out of jail for something they may or may not have done, that's a lot on the line.
Yeah, that's basically, if she is not a human trafficker and no bad guys were arrested or put away from that raid, and no kids were saved, if none of those kids were part of human trafficking and they just showed up like she did, hoping to make some money off of some Americans, then the entire narrative falls apart. So it's pretty important that Kelly be convicted of human trafficking. So in 2021, she was charged with trafficking kids, and all of a sudden, 8 years later, her life was thrown into a spiral again. Everybody in Cartagena that had seen the movie knew that it was talking about Kelly Suarez, the Sound of Freedom movie. It absolutely, obviously destroyed her personally, but also destroyed her reputation and her character, her name, and her face. I think she even got death threats. And
yeah,
talk about like re-victimizing and re-traumatizing this woman 8 years after she was, got out of prison, was trying to put her life back together. It sounds like just like the most horrific story you wouldn't want anybody to have to go through. So that trial is finally coming to a court in Cartagena. It's been happening last week and this week, and the verdict on that is going to be issued Friday. From our understanding, Kelly is innocent of these charges. She was a fall guy for Tim to prop up his narrative that he's putting away bad guys. And she was an innocent victim along the ways. One of the people that was just left in this wake of damage that he and OUR has left from all these raids.
From starting by literally her answering a Facebook ad where he claims, like in Sound of Freedom, that I'm sure there are horrible, sex trafficking cartel rings all over the world. I wouldn't deny that. But in this instance, his proposition to the world is give me money because I'm the one to break them up, where even just the founding story of OUR into the narrative form of making this myth-making for the Sound of Freedom movie to platform Tim as himself as somebody who goes into these dangerous places to break up the sex trafficking rings. But even the founding of it, of OUR, and the founding of the story and the narrative of Sound of Freedom is something that just started with a Facebook ad of, where's the sex trafficking rings that you're busting open? Like, where are the dangerous cartels that you are infiltrating, that you need to use the couple's ruse and all this stuff? When it's pretty much like a derp, like a Facebook ad. Anybody want to come to a sex party? Like it's a really, it's my, like, I don't know, my suspicions are on high alert for something that is never going to be the badass, like Rambo, Department of Homeland Security, like all of the things that Tim has propositioned that he's had, when it's like, it's a Facebook ad that somebody in a desperate situation answered. And then she's the fall guy because they're like, you look young enough, or she thought she was young enough, right, to be a like to prostitute herself. Minor. And so she said she was underage when she went to this party. She wasn't underage, and therefore it's either we rescued you or you're one of the traffickers. You're in our story no matter what. But yeah, just another innocent person that's been left in all this carnage of Tim Ballard's myth making. Like, he cares.
And by innocent, we mean innocent of human trafficking. Like, she went there by herself. She was not bringing kids to be exploited. But that's what she's being charged with. That's what Tim identified her as guilty of. So this is a really huge trial. Out of all the lawsuits and all the trials, this is Kelly's criminal trial going to be ruled upon in Cartagena, Colombia this week. And if she is found not guilty of being a trafficker, then the entire narrative behind Tim's purpose and OUR's purpose and their founder story based on the Sound of Freedom movie all becomes a fraud. It proves it's a fraud, and it leaves very little doubt. And it also shows that innocent people are being hurt along the way because of his tactics. So this is a really big deal. We're not in the judge's head. We don't know anything, but if it does go in Kelly's favor, then this is a really big deal. It might be the first domino in these trials to fall, and which would set the stage for all of these other allegations and lawsuits, and might even open the door for other victims to come forward that have also been hurt and harmed and harassed and incarcerated and charged wrongfully from the OUR raids. So it could really start a
truly like
spiral.
the first domino to fall. Because I would say Tim, in his mind, thinks that he is untouchable from his church status and the money that he has and the way he smears his victims and stuff. Like, the Colombian trial is not going to like F around here. It's going to like put the evidence forward that, can you prove that she's actually a trafficker? What is your evidence? And like all of the things that they can go through with discovery and witnesses. It is really like right in front of us, something that is going to be the first time where Tim Ballard is truly getting his balls kicked in. Because you can't smear a judge to his face if he says, you know, dude, you put one of our sweet, sweet Colombian princesses in this horrible situation just to go do your white saviorism and play Rambo around our country. I don't know if they have a gavel in their Colombian court systems, but I hope it goes guilt. Like, I guess the verdict would be like
innocent for Kelly.
Kelly is innocent, and therefore Tim Ballard, you are a total fraud. And that sound of the gavel banging, sound of freedom.
That's the sound of freedom for Kelly. Freedom from Tim Ballard.
That sound, when Tim hears it, he's going to go, sound of fraud. Dang it. Oh, I didn't want to hear that sound. But first, one of the reasons we want to do this live is if you're wondering where we are, this is my normal home studio that I normally film in, but we just had to move a couch around and just throw up some lights so that we could do this as quickly as possible. Because Ryan, what is on your docket for this week?
I was not there for the raid. I do not know Kelly personally, but as a character witness to Tim Ballard, I am part of this case and am testifying on behalf of Kelly in this criminal investigation into her allegations that she's a human trafficker. And so I will be participating in this trial, and I won't be here, able to podcast in the next few days, but I'm going to be giving you updates as I'm made aware of news and information as it comes out for this. So hopefully you'll stay tuned. And this is a really big deal.
Yeah. So in addition to a Mormon Stories episode that we just filmed with John DeLynn yesterday with your daughter, and I co-hosted, so look for that in the next few days, maybe a week or two from now as well.
Well, this trial is going to make headlines. We've already seen it make headlines in national media in Colombia and the wider Central South America. Tim has been going on PR campaign tours through Mexico and throughout Central South America for years and become the face and name behind the anti-trafficking movement, feeding his white savior complex. This changes everything. He's very well known down there, just like he is in the United States and in Utah, especially. He's very well known and has had a ton of media coverage about his efforts, OUR's efforts. If this trial goes the way that we believe it is, exonerating Kelly, proving that the Sound of Freedom narrative is a fraud and that Tim Ballard is hurting innocent people on the way in his pursuit of saving kids, then that is going to rip through Central and South America big time, and it's going to be a really big story.
I believe it. I love if any viewers out there, listeners to the podcast, are from Central or South America. If you're from Colombia and you also, have something that you want to add, and you've been following any parts of this Tim Ballard saga or anything, I also would just love to hear from the people who, these stories from Tim and these crimes that he's committed, allegedly, like if they've affected you or the people around you, or if you're keen on also seeing this white saviorism be taken down. I would love to hear from anybody from the communities that are actually affected by it. And as we're doing this live stream, just wanted to remind everybody that I am super lucky to have Ryan over here as this business partner and co-hosting this podcast. And eventually we're going to be working on a documentary together and have, I don't want to tell you what we have working on it, because I'd rather just show you when it's ready. So all of this stuff at the trial, we kind of have to wait on talking about certain things or filming certain things. But as of right now, like, things are going to be popping off. There's a lot of interest in this case, and I'm super lucky that, Ryan, being a character witness and your filmmaking background, and that you were just a guy with a lot of integrity and really well spoken. So I hope that we can continue this podcast, and it would really mean a lot if we can fundraise for this podcast. This is like me doing this as a full-time job and trying to speak up for the women and put Tim behind bars where he belongs. And the work that you're doing, hopefully we can, find a way to also keep this podcast going, fund it, be compensated and stuff. So through this YouTube channel, whether you want to just add any likes through pressing that button, subscribing is great. I'm not leaving. Don't get scared. Just reminding you midway through that, what's the thing where you press the $sign and it gives money? That's fine too. And then Venmo @KaraB. All of this money that goes to my donor box link that's down below. That's all tax deductible in the United States, because I also have a nonprofit now. And then we have a really exciting Patreon. Timmy Did What Patreon that's really gotten popular. I'm going to be uploading like multiple clips a week of exclusive things that we're not putting on YouTube. So that's another great way to get exclusive content and support the podcast and all of the work that we're doing. All really in an effort to just tell Tim that he can't keep getting away with this, that as these dominoes fall, we're going to be there covering it and making sure that he knows that you can't go around smearing people. You can't go around just shoving innocent people in jail so you can bump up your numbers. So we really, really support your comments and anything that you can do to support the channel. So thank you.
There's different camps surrounding Tim. Obviously, there's people like some of you guys that think this guy needs to be taken out, but then there's a huge support group for Tim that refuse to acknowledge that there's anything that he could have done nefarious or wrong. And that's kind of the two camps that people fall into. And then there's a lot of people in the middle, I know, that are waiting to see what happens. The Columbia case is going through trial through the legal system with a judge and with people that are in neither camp. So this is like the first unbiased look at all of the evidence that's being presented. And this has nothing to do with the women in Utah and the women that have been issuing lawsuits. This is a completely separate thing. This is a criminal trial against Kelly Suarez, but it's being all the evidence. It's similar. It crosses over. What's on trial is whether Tim is up to saving kids or up to no good and hurting people. And so it's completely separate from and unaffiliated with the lawsuits from the women alleging sexual assault. But it gives us a real, I feel, an unbiased look into the claims of Tim Ballard and OUR. Are they fraudulent or are they supported? Is he doing good or is he harming people? That's what's at stake. This is going to be very revealing.
I like to say Christmas is coming early, because you might have thought that, okay, yes, there's an FBI investigation. I know. Oh, is there a criminal investigation in Utah? How's that going to go with AG Suarez? Oh, obviously there's the lawsuit of these women. What is it up to? 7, 8, 9 now all of a sudden? But I'm going to have to wait ages to know if Tim Ballard's a fraud or not. Well, Christmas has come early, because as of the verdict on Friday, we will be able to have signed, sealed, delivered, so much more evidence and proof of Tim Ballard's myth-making and the people that he throws underneath the bus to get what he wants, like the amount of money and fame that he's accrued on the backs of other innocent people. All of this stuff is going to be coming out right now in this week. Mm-hmm. And we're going to be here for it, bringing it to you. So
hopefully we'll be here. If anything happens to me or my family in any way, shape, or form, Kara has the address for the guy in Eagle Mountain who you should ask some questions to.
I'm just going to deliver a pizza to your house, Tim. Be like, what the F? Did you set up some kind of I don't know, I don't want to get dark, but I did. I put up some security systems around my house this week, and it actually made me feel less safe, because I was like, why didn't I do this already? I was scared out of my mind. Mm-hmm. So sometimes people do ask us, pretty often, I would say, hey, Kara, you haven't put out a video in a while. Is it because you're being threatened by Tim Ballard? That's neither here nor there, but it's not to say it's out of the realm of possibilities, because there have been other things happening to other people that we will discuss at a later date and time.
Yeah.
So let me read this article out of Columbia to give you another brief overview of what's going on right now. Kelly Suarez is a liar. Tim Ballard responds to lawsuit. Quote, now she's suing me for defamation. She's lying about me. The former U.S. federal agent said in a radio interview regarding the case that is almost a decade old. Again, this is published today, the 27th of August from El Universal out of Cartagena. Former U.S. federal agent Tim Ballard responded to the accusations made against him by Kelly Suarez Moya. In an interview with W Radio, Ballard referred to the defamation lawsuit filed against him by the Cartagena native in a court in Utah, USA. So in addition to, Kelly, is she innocent? Is she guilty? What's the deal here? It's also a defamation suit that she has added her name to, in addition with like the other women who are in legal proceedings with Tim Ballard, where she says, hey, remember how you made an entire movie and smeared my name and based a character off of me when I didn't do nothing? That's some defamation, bro. I don't really like the way that I have death threats based on a fictional story that you made up about me. Accurate? Anything to add there? So yeah,
that's
Kelly not happy. Kara not happy on behalf of Kelly. Let me also just add in, Christmas has also come double early because Kelly follows me on Twitter now. So
she has.
Here you go.
Hey, shout out to Kelly.
Suarez, who had remained silent since her controversial capture in October 2014 and who has been free since 2016, said this year in an interview with El Universal that she is not guilty and the Ballard violated her rights to the presumption of innocence and defamed her with a film that is totally false. The film she is referring to is Sound of Freedom, which portrays the horror of child sexual exploitation and human trafficking, and is inspired by the operation on the island of Baru, where Kelly was captured, allegedly for belonging to a child trafficking network. The legal proceedings against Suarez and other prisoners have not yet been resolved and continue in Cartagena court in a trial that has lasted for almost a decade. Quote, when this film, 2023, came out, I fell into depression and anxiety. My mother also became very ill. They violated my right to the presumption of innocence and condemned me before the world with a film that is totally false, Suarez said on that occasion. Suarez added that her capture in 2014 was due to a mix-up between her and another young woman named Natty. Ballard, on whom the film is also based, had reiterated in numerous interviews that the film, which grossed more than $250 million in the box office, is based on the so-called Pimp Queen, a nickname Kelly received for her participation in the Cartagena Independence Day Parade in 2013. And you will see all kinds of interviews. I could literally list 10 interviews where I've seen Tim in front of an audience, whether Mormon audiences or like Central South American audiences. Doesn't matter where he goes, Fox News, where he will tell the story of like the true story behind the Sound of Freedom and talk about this beauty queen with this modeling agency and the ways that she would, like beguile these kids throw them into containers and ship them into America or wherever to be sold as sex slaves. He tells this horrifying story. And then he points to a picture on the screen behind him. And it's a picture, like I have on the thumbnail right now, of Kelly Suarez. Like, how would that make you feel? Sorry to use a line from Tim Ballard. Whenever he says something horrible, like we just saved a bunch of kids, 12-year-old. Can you imagine being 12 years old? Like, can you imagine going through that? Tim, I'm stealing your line. Something also really horrible has happened. It's called you defaming this woman and pointing to her when she's like, I should have a presumption of innocence here. So Tim has defamed her to the highest degree. Does he care? No. Can you imagine that, really? Like, yeah, I've been smeared online before, but I've never like had 10 different public TV interviews where somebody points to me and calls me a sex trafficker with my face and name. If I was innocent of that, I also would become very ill. Like, I can't imagine anything worse than somebody going around the world doing that. Tim Ballard, not only is she a drug dealer, she is a liar. Now, in a nearly 30-minute interview with W Radio, Tim Ballard spoke out about the lawsuit against him, saying that Kelly is not only a drug dealer, but is also a liar. Tim, you're on ketamine. Where do you get your drugs from? Cast the first stone, that kind of stuff. I have no idea about her drug use. I have no idea whether that's true or false, but I just know that Tim is alleged of doing a lot of drugs. Ballard, who served for a decade on the U.S. Internet Crimes Against Children Task Force, says he has presented videos to the court that would prove Kelly's involvement in child trafficking. I brought the videos. I'm speaking directly to her, the accused trafficker in this video. I said to her, Kelly, Joanna, the girls that you bring, what are you going to do with us? It is clearly recorded, Ballard said. In those videos, Kelly said not once but twice that it's okay to have sex with the children. All of this will have to come out in court. We'll see. We'll see. Now she's suing me for defamation. She's lying about me. Well, it's always going to be defamation. Correct me if I'm wrong, Ryan. If it's not proven in a court, she was released based on habeas corpus. And if she's not actually proven in a court of law to be a sex trafficker, it's really not okay to go be putting their names and faces and pointing to them on big screens, saying that this person is absolutely that. If you're after the truth.
And the question that I have is, like, if it was so convincing that she was the trafficker bringing kids to this party back in 2014, why wasn't she charged with being the trafficker in 2014?
Mm-hmm.
Why did it take 8 years before charges to be brought before her? Isn't that suspicious? I mean, that's highly sus to me.
Yeah, and it waited until the Sound of Freedom movie when she was already so defamed that they're like, I guess we have to figure this out now. Like,
that's what it looks like. I don't know. I wasn't
you.
at the raid. I don't know what's going on inside OUR. A lot of people don't know. We're just calling it like we see it. And these are all allegations that we're putting out there, or proposals or ideas, but that's kind of the narrative that other people are seeing as well.
Right. Former U.S. federal agent says he's not guilty of sex crimes. Regarding the accusations against him for alleged sexual crimes that have been filed in the United States, Tim Ballard says that they come from people who want to change history to make money.
Wait, did he just give us his game plan, his MO?
I'm telling you, guys, if you learn one thing from the Timmy Did What podcast, it's that narcissists' accusations are admissions. From the distribution of the film, they didn't say until the movie had made over $250 million, and all of a sudden they're saying things that aren't true, he said. Ballard said all the lawsuits are coming from lawyers looking to profit from the situation, and said they have already been dismissed in part. I don't have time to get through this, but go watch our other videos. None of that is true. That is Tim
misleading.
It's
very
misleading.
It sound like the important lawsuits and all the allegations against him personally have been dismissed.
Should I do it? Yeah. You know how like some people, when they cover like Trump a lot, they get a Trump impression or something? I need a Tim Ballard impression. I usually just kind of talk like a douche bro from Provo that I grew up with, but I should work on it. Give me a few more months and the rest of the lawsuits will disappear too, because they're lying and they're going to lose everything. And they're going to hurt these women that they have deceived. And we're winning, and we will continue to win. I didn't even meet one of the women who is suing me, he said.
Was he drunk when he gave this interview?
Yeah.
That's kind of what it sounded like.
Is he drunk when he gave anything to anyone ever? American lawyers Alan Morton said, woo! Suzette Rasmussen.
Go girl.
We're #1 fans. That's what I think I'll do. I'll be printing off like big foam fingers of like, Alan, Suzette, I'm your #1 fan. Who represent Kelly in this lawsuit in the United States, said last July they are pursuing other legal proceedings against Ballard for sexual crimes allegedly committed by some of his former employees, including a former assistant named Celeste Boris, who has accused him of sexual assault. That's Tim's former executive assistant, #1 fan, Celeste. Woo! She's got DNA evidence of Tim's sperm on her skirt. So that's been confirmed by the Utah County Crime Lab. Shall I continue? Ballard said he is in Cartagena as part of the promotion of the conference, God's Children Are Not for Sale, a campaign that will be developed in several countries to prevent and educate about sexual crimes. I love irony. I'm a satirist. I love that Tim goes into other countries and the whole thing is like, God's children are not for sale. But if I can just make a really good story about how they're not for sale, can I sell that? Will you guys buy a story about how God's kids are not for sale? I'll traumatize them first. Like I'll shake them up and make sure that like they're definitely not for sale, like physically, but like the trauma that they incur, if my cameras are there to capture that and we talk about it, that's a pretty good story that I think you would buy, right? So again, the reason why we're doing this, me and Ryan have gone full 2 feet in the deep end. Like I've changed my whole like YouTube channel. We made a whole like everything is centered on this for a lot of reasons. And one, first and foremost, to me is that Tim cannot get away with this, and that he has victims that I believe that I have met, that I can see, that I see the evidence, that I've seen enough of these like male pattern narcissists in my time. And I want to be the one to analyze and decode it and bring this information to you so that these victims that have been so traumatized, that put their life on the line to begin with, that they do not feel like no one is listening or paying attention, that they're just another one of the many people that have, you know, been bowled over in the wake of Tim Ballard and his rise to fame, and that, you know, the sacrifices that they made, the traumas that they, you know, incurred were all for nothing. And to say, nope, so I want to advocate for them, just like anything that you've gone through or I've gone through, to know that someone is your corner to advocate when it feels like it's always falling on deaf ears. So Tim cannot get away with, and I want to make as much noise as possible. But second, moreover, it's that this is a nexus, a crux, a center point of so much revelations about the inner workings of the LDS Church, Elder Ballard, AG Sean Reyes with the state of Utah. This is where all of these different things meet. And when we know how many people were deceived, how many people propped him up, how many people, you know, smeared others along the way, how many people gave money, cocaine, who knows, all of this in an effort to appear to do something as noble as humanly possible, to end something like child sex trafficking, but be so dubious and criminal and have so much actual evil intentions and be so deceived along the way. I am a Utah resident. I am a former Mormon, and I am an advocate for anyone who is a victim of such a horrific crime. So hope that you'll stick with us as we uncover all of the pieces of this onion, because this is such a massive story. This is a once in a lifetime. This is like 4 times bigger than like anything that I have even cared about up to this point. Like I want to put everything I can into this, and I hope you guys will come with us on this and agree.
Yeah, absolutely. And I platformed this guy, and I was his biggest supporter and fan for, I donated 7 years of my life, most of it volunteer, to helping him rise to fame. And now I need to, for my own conscience and to represent all the friends that I know that have also been hurt by him and been marginalized and have gone through character assassinations, I need to deplatform this guy. And thankfully, I found a kindred spirit and a voice that understood what was at stake way before everybody else. And I mean, you were covering this stuff early on as like, yes, somebody knows what's going on here. Somebody can see through the BS, and it's a special gift, like I've said before, if you have. And anyways, I'm super thankful and grateful to have a friend and an ally in this fight. You don't have a dog in this fight, but you're willing to pivot everything that you do and you're about to taking down this predator and making sure that he doesn't hurt anybody else. And so I'm super grateful for that. I know the women are super grateful for you. Like, we got this thing. So, and I appreciate the audience here for joining us in this fight and supporting us, sharing, commenting. We've had tons of comments of support, hundreds of comments with every video. Those mean a lot. I know many of the victims that are known and many of them that are probably unknown are looking at those and reading them. And I know personally somebody watched our video who was a former board member of OUR, and it stirred up courage in her. She said that she didn't know she had. And I think she's going to come on and talk with us in the near future, hopefully. But that's the kind of thing that your positive support and believing the victims, that's the kind of positivity that can happen when like-minded people stand up and say, we need to make a change here, and we need to put this guy away and make sure that nobody else gets hurt.
Thank you. I know. I mean, I do not do this for the compliments or like anything, but I swear, like, you know, you're going to be testifying. I'm putting my like all of my time, talents, and resources into the Church of Timmy Did What podcast, Latter-day Saints of Jesus Christ. And it's really just because I was so inspired by meeting the victims, and some of Tim Ballard's victims have spoken up and some haven't. And I think anybody who's gone through, whether it's like a faith crisis or something hard or a divorce or anything where there's a situation where you just cannot stay put where you are anymore, and something is devastating and the smears that would be coming, and meeting the victims who some of them hadn't like left their house in like a year, that are so shaken up, but knowing like from their perspective, them being like, well, if we didn't speak up, we can't lay our head on the pillow kind of language. Like we can't go to bed and feel like there's this predator out there if we don't do something to stop him, no matter, what comes our way. And I was so inspired by, their voices, that anything I can do to champion people who are already just making these ultimate sacrifices of, there's an article that we will have to read when you get back from Colombia that just came out of Wired. And this article also goes into the same similar story of just how these women have been so devastated and so shaken up, but they're willing to do all of this to stop him from putting more people in harm's way and stopping this myth making. And it takes a lot of whistleblowers and a lot of brave people that to re-traumatize themselves to go through this. And anything that I can do to be like, hey audience, listen, we've got, sorry to ruin your day, or make your day. We have got a person who needs to go behind bars, and fortunately there is a trail of evidence that I'm going to talk to you about. So now you know about it, and this person cannot continue this myth making any longer. Hey guys, just so you know, rock stars, alleged victims, amazing people over here. Can we tell their stories? Can we show you this evidence? Like bloated drunk guy screaming at his phone who's completely lost the plot on how to save sex trafficked kids because he just like molests women and thinks that he's doing something. Excommunicated Mormon guy over here. Amazing innocent women who are beautiful beacons of light. Anything I can do to just like show that difference and put it in front of your face. We're going to keep doing for literally years, literally like the next couple of years with the projects that we have coming. So please reach out, support us. Again, the donor box donations, tax deductible in the United States. Really need any donations that we can to get our documentary up and funded and filmed, and that this podcast can actually be a full-time job. It's not just a passion project that I don't get to feed my family to do. So if we can unite all of these and you guys can hear my call, I would be so appreciative if we can check the donor box after this and say, oh, they listened and they did donate because it's tax deductible in the United States, and they filled out that form with their heart and not their minds. Is there anything else that you wanted to say real quick? This is the conclusion of the Timmy Did What podcast live stream for now. Please subscribe to this channel if you haven't already. It's free, it costs you nothing, helps us out in algorithm. Leaving a comment of support for the women, people like Kelly Suarez, to really, spread this message far and wide. Liking and sharing goes a long way. So me and Ryan really appreciate your support. And please, if you are a spiritual or religious person, send lots of prayers Ryan's way as he testifies in this trial, that everything will go just as the good Lord predicted it to go. That karma's our boyfriend, not Tim Ballard's. All right. Yeah.
Mark your calendars for Friday. Hopefully we'll have some big news for you Friday. Either way, one way or another, Friday it all happens. It all goes down.
Rebecca Black will be loving it. All right.
Okay. Bye.
Timmy, we will know what he did. We didn't do a good outro.
All right.
Friday we'll know what he did. So stay tuned.
Stay tuned.
All right. Bye.